Cracks in the Green Consensus. Hi, everyone. This is Steve Gottenham. And one of the points that pay my attention is he has a book with more than 100,000 copies in print. It's fantastic. He's also executive director of climate science and several other positions. So please read later with details. Just welcome, Steve. It's a pleasure.
Hello, Armando. Great to join you again.
Thank you, Steve. Steve, 10 years from Paris Agreement, 2015, and we need to commemorate this event. And how do you see the consensus, the probable consensus at COP30 in Belém next week?
Yes, next week, COP30, the Conference of the Parties, the 30th meeting, United Nations Climate Conference. And your president, that's in Belém, Brazil, of course, and your president Da Silva is in just 2 days holding an early meeting with the leaders of the conference.
Yeah.
And they're all going to try and decide how to go forward. But 10 years ago, we had the Paris Climate Agreement, which was supposedly a legally binding agreement, although the United States didn't get it approved by the Senate. But the idea here was that all of the nations of the world would agree to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, agree to stop using coal, oil, and natural gas. But it's been very, very slow. The graph that you're looking at there is a graph of data from the Energy Institute. And in 2024, the world was still getting 87% of its energy from hydrocarbon fuels. And those are coal, oil, and natural gas. The amount of coal actually used last year went up 1.7%. So we've had many, many climate conferences. They've not been very successful in trying to reduce emissions and use of hydrocarbon fuels. As you and I have discussed many times, I do think the world is in error. The leaders of the world are going the wrong direction. I think the evidence shows that climate is dominated by nature, not human emissions. Yet the world is spending about $2 trillion a year in support of renewable energy to try and control global temperatures.
And the participation is so small of renewables in the total.
Yeah, let's go to the next slide.
Sure.
I call this the World Energy Mountain. This shows that the annual energy supply has quadrupled since 1965 and even accelerated since about 2000. And in any given year, about a United Kingdom worth of additional energy is produced and consumed, incremental. I've also plotted down there the amount of wind and solar that provides it, which is very, very small. There's a lot of headlines about how wind and solar is doing all this, but it's not very big. Just another example of how the world energy scene is still dominated by hydrocarbons.
Yeah, that's still dominated. Tell me about Bill Gates. He changed everything about the past speeches. What happened exactly with him?
Yeah, this is really big. He actually sent a 20-page memo, if you would, to COP30, and he really stepped back from climate catastrophe. He basically said that it's time for the climate fight to shift focus from curbing emissions to reducing human suffering.
Wow.
Which is really a big, big change. Mr. Gates has been fighting climate change for many, many years. He was the founder of Microsoft, of course. He has foundations that have given billions of dollars to the fight against climate. But he now has said, here's a recent quote from him. I should say he said that the world's primary goal should instead be to prevent suffering, particularly for those in the toughest conditions in the world's poorest countries, and not to worry so much about emissions. And here's a quote from him. I'll let the temperature go up 1/10 of a degree to get rid of malaria. People don't understand the suffering that exists today. But this is really a big, big change. And this dominated the headlines in the last week. Many people on both sides talking about it. And of course, it's taken a lot of courage for him to change his position here. And he's been heavily criticized, but I think he's getting back to the sensible point of view. We have 700 million people that don't have electricity, another 2 billion that have blackouts every day or every other day. We have about a third of the world's people that don't always have clean water. They don't have good sanitation. So there are many, many problems to solve. And as he mentions, we have millions die every year from diseases. And these are real tangible issues that we should be solving rather than worrying about emissions from all sorts of sources.
Yeah, but the question, Steve, why he made this movement? Is there anything special that, let's say,
Well, I think he's sincere, and I think he's just realized that, we're not seeing more catastrophes. We're not seeing the oceans are rising about the same rate that they have been for the last several centuries. And I think he realizes the proper course of action is adaptation and to focus on fighting poverty and preventing disease. So I think he's had what I call a realistic revelation, but we'll just have to see over time. I do see that we have a number of leaders, though, that are now pushing back against net zero and climatism.
Yeah, Al Gore may be the next one. Okay. You said in one of your texts that some political parties are rejecting net zero, are moving to another position too. Which ones, you mean parties?
Yeah, you can put up the next slide if you would like.
Sure.
Maybe you've got it up there. Let me see. So these are three parties in particular. The Reform Party in the United Kingdom, led by Nigel Farage, is now actually leading in the polls. And they have called Britain's net zero policy, quote, net stupid zero. And they really think they need to get rid of it. And Britain, again, is a very small part of global emissions. What they do really doesn't make much difference. Then there's a party in Germany that's now number 2 called the Alternative for Deutschland. And they now have a plank that they want to get rid of all wind turbines. There are 20,000 of those in Germany, and it's like the highest density in the world. They want to get rid of them now. That's a big change. And then just a week ago, the Nationalist Party in Australia said basically that they don't want to do net zero anymore. That it's just they want to look more at what is sensible policy. So, and I'm not sure where they are in the polls. I don't think they're a leader, but they're one of the main parties in Australia. So these are 3 big recent examples of parties that, if you will, are kind of following the path of Bill Gates. They're saying net zero isn't the right way. And that's what I've said, of course, in Green Breakdown for quite a while in my book that was written a couple of years ago, that people are going to get back to sensible energy policy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What is MIO, and what exactly happened with this institution related to maritime transport?
Yeah, it's the IMO. It's the International Maritime Organization. Mm-hmm. Well, this is the World Shipping Organization, and they for many years have been concerned about emissions from ships. As I talk about in Green Breakdown, there's a little section on this. They were actually thinking about putting speed limits on ships globally, so they could only go a certain speed out in the ocean, and that would reduce emissions. The problem is, to deliver the same amount of goods, you need 10% more ships, and you need more crews, and that doesn't seem to make much environmental sense to add a whole lot more ships to deliver the goods. But then they've recently been talking about imposing a carbon tax on shipping, because shipping burns diesel fuel, and they want to have some other methods in there. Brazil actually was opposing this tax up until last April, I believe, but then they joined more than 60 other countries in favor of this carbon tax on shipping. But this just went down about 2 weeks ago. The United States and China and Saudi Arabia and some other nations were opposing this. And Mr. Trump actually was saying he was going to retaliate with tariffs on nations that that tried to put this tax on
As usual.
as usual. Here, I'm going to quote him a little bit here. He said, quote, "The United States will not stand for this global green new scam tax on shipping." Sounds like Mr. Trump.
So it's not being applied yet.
No, they've decided to delay it for a year. They're going to
Uh-huh.
come back in a year and see what they could do. But yeah, it's again, I don't know that. Again, I don't think people are eventually going to find out that this is not going to have a measurable effect because carbon dioxide from nature and from the oceans and the effects of the sun are what dominate global temperatures, not what's coming out of our ships.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one side we have green energy being used a little bit more than in the past, but not too much as you show in the second slide. But the other side, electricity prices are becoming higher. How to
Yeah,
explain?
yeah. This is I was mostly talking about in the United States here. We've heard for a year that renewables were the cheapest form of electricity. Well, I should say for many years.
Mhm.
All these articles about how wind is cheaper and solar is
Yeah.
cheaper and they beat even coal. The problem is, though, if you look at the evidence, and we've talked about it before, if you look at the nations in Europe, for example, the nations that have the most wind and solar have the highest electricity prices,
Yeah.
and the other ones that don't have as much wind and solar have lower prices. We see it in the US. The latest thing is if you look at electricity price increases over the last 5 years, you can go down a couple slides here.
Yeah, sure. 1 second. 5.
So the first, yeah,
This-
keep going.
Okay.
The first one, these are headlines if folks can see this about how wind is cheaper and solar are cheaper. But if you look at actual implementation, that's not the case. So go to the next one.
Mhm.
This is a graph of electricity price increases over the last 5 years for selected states in the United States. And the USA average electricity price has gone up 22.5% over 5 years. That's the brown or orange curve there in the middle. And that's just about at the same level of inflation. But states like California and Maine and New York, Maryland, Massachusetts, Connecticut have all gone up 30% or more over 5 years. California is way up about 58% more over 5 years than they were. And then you have other states that are using less wind and solar, a little more coal and more natural gas, like Georgia and Florida and Texas and Missouri on the right side of the chart. And their prices have gone up slower. There's some other things going on too. Several of the stations there, the states there I mentioned are in New England, Massachusetts and Connecticut and Maine. And those states have a shortage of natural gas. And that's because the pipelines would have to go through the state of New York, and the state of New York has halted gas pipelines for 2 decades now. And so they don't have enough gas for electrical power or home heating in New England, and they're importing liquefied natural gas instead of getting through a pipeline, and it's 2 or 3 times as expensive as the rest of the country. And that's because of New York's green policy. So this is just another example of where green policies cause more expense for people.
Let's talk a little bit about artificial intelligence that is becoming something special in the world, but with the risks of a bubble, we do not know about that. But
yeah,
NVIDIA plans to invest $100 billion in open AI. And electricity will come from where?
Well, that's the question. Now, OpenAI is really a special outfit. They originally came up with ChatGPT, I believe, 3 years ago and started this revolution. They aren't making any profits, but they're valuated at $500 billion right now is what the value is. I think they're about to go public, or they are a public company. But they're planning to build data centers all over. Now, I don't know if that company's going to survive.
Yeah.
But there's many other big companies like Microsoft and Google and Meta and Oracle and others that are building these data centers all over. But OpenAI is pursuing a worldwide data center build. They call them the Stargate data centers. You can put up the next slide.
Sure. 1 second.
They're building these in the United States, in India, in Norway, in the Middle East, other locations. And they're just getting a whole lot of money to build these data centers. NVIDIA has invested $100 billion in OpenAI, and OpenAI is going to return that by buying a whole bunch of graphics processing units for their data centers. But
what type of energy are they planning to use?
Well, in the U.S., it's primarily natural gas right now, because natural gas plants can be put up very quickly, and they're relatively inexpensive to put up. You can put one up in a couple of years. I think we talked about before how Tesla put up a data center near Memphis with 100,000 NVIDIA graphics processing units. They did it in less than a year. They weren't even able to get the license as fast as they built the thing. They finally got the licenses, but they're very fast now. Nuclear can take a decade and is much more expensive. But now we also have this revolution going on. I'm writing an article about. We have a nuclear revolution in many places based on small modular reactors. Traditionally, nuclear plants have been built on site, and they've been custom, and they've been big. They've been 1 gigawatt or more. But these small modular reactors are between 10 megawatts and 300 megawatts. And they're even made so you can put them made in a factory, you can put them on a truck and bring them to the site and hook them up and put the fuel in. And so they're hoping to get huge cycle time reductions and huge cost reductions as well from these small modular reactors. But this is another thing. And in the United States, we have, again, the Trump administration that Mr. Trump back in May issued 4 executive orders on nuclear. And one of them said that by 2050, he wants the United States to increase our nuclear capacity to quadruple it.
Wow.
To go up to 400 megawatts. Currently, about 18% of U.S. electricity comes from nuclear. He wants to quadruple that. So there's a bunch of huge things going on for artificial intelligence. And I think around the world, too. I just saw another thing, NVIDIA. I think they were combining with Siemens to do something in Germany. And NVIDIA just set up something with South Korea. So we have this is going on in many places as well. I think maybe Argentina is doing something as well with data centers.
Yeah, Argentina is doing that. Yes, Brazil is planning, but it's so difficult here in Brazil because taxes are high and things like that. Yeah, Argentina is going very well and is attracting some investments for energy. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it'll come eventually. I think if this is. I tend to think, another thing, if you look at the 4 big guys, if you look at Microsoft and Google and Meta and Amazon, they together invested this year, 2025, $360 billion in data centers. And they say they all say they're going to increase it for next year. And you've got to go, wow. I mean, if they weren't providing applications and making any money on this, would they increase it again? But they all say for next year they're going to increase it. So, and these are all profitable companies.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it is a head scratcher. The amount of money and the amount of power needed is just huge.
Yeah, I don't know how they expect to make money with this because need to reduce people working for them, and they are starting to lay off people. No?
Well, I think that's part of it. Yeah, they're reducing people and putting in more automation.
Yeah,
but it's also I know that the web is being impacted. There are many companies that right now are based on web clicks for their advertising and their profitability. Mm-hmm. And they're seeing those go down. I think what people are doing is when they go to Google, they look at that first AI thing, and they often take their answer from that rather than doing more research.
Yeah.
and so the number of clicks is going down. So it is having some impacts. You know, where it's all going to end up, that's anybody's guess.
Yeah. Steve, tell me, California closed refineries, nuclear power plants, and now Ivanpah. What's
Yeah,
Ivanpah? Is a solar panel system?
Ivanpah Solar. Yeah, you can put up the next image.
Sure.
Ivanpah is an engineering marvel. It has these 3 towers. You can see them there, and it has more than just about 200,000 mirrors that reflect sunlight up onto these towers. They heat up a fluid and they allow it to generate power. This is very, very big. It's like about 5 or 6 square miles of area. They built this out in the desert. They built it in 2014, and it was the biggest solar facility in the world at the time. But now, after 10 years, they want to close it.
Mhm.
You know, they say it's just not producing enough electricity. There's a lot of maintenance issues. For example, these in the desert, they have the winds blow and they get dust all over these mirrors, and then they have cleaning crews out there cleaning off 200,000 mirrors. I mean,
Wow.
it's a big effort. They have another problem too,
So
and that is,
the
go ahead.
investors lost this money, these investments.
Well, I think so. Now, to do this, it was about $2.2 billion, and a lot of that was loans from the government and subsidies.
As
So a
well.
lot of this taxpayers paid for a bunch of this, but yeah, the power companies aren't happy, and they're going to have to clean this whole thing up too. You know, there's also been criticism aimed at this because it kills birds. It's been estimated that this facility kills something like 6,000 birds a year. And when they fly close to these towers, that's how many is that a day? That's like, is that 200 a day or 20 a day? It's 200 a day, I think.
Mhm.
But these birds fly close to these towers and they literally start smoking,
Oh,
and then they fall to the ground. And they've actually invented a name for this. They call them streamers.
Mm.
When these birds start smoking. So, you know, it's just an example where we've tried to force something in, and there was a lot of new invention in this, but it's not holding up very well against conventional power plants.
yeah.
So they're closing it.
Uh-huh. Steve, do you really believe in the failure of renewable energy? Because in your book, Green Breakdown, you predicted the failure. So are you checking that you were right at the time?
Well, I think so. And what I mean by failure is that we're not going to get to net zero. We're not going to get to very high percentages of renewables. As we add more and more renewables, we end up with problems with intermittency and all the land that is used, and then all the recycling you have to do when you tear down these plants. By the way, a lot of those wind turbines in Germany, for example, are getting old. They're going to have to tear them all down and put up new ones. They only last 20 or 25 years, solar and wind. So they got to have a bunch of issues. But I'd like your viewers or your listeners, if you want to go down a slide or two.
The next one? Uh-huh.
Yeah, let's see what's on the next one. That's Green Breakdown.
Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, that's the picture I want them to put in their minds.
Mm.
So that huge tidal wave is what I call the artificial intelligence revolution.
Uh-huh.
And that little sailboat is net zero policies. And that big wave is just going to wash away that net zero across the world.
A good representation. Yeah, it really is. Oh my God. So you believe that renewable will fail? Renewables will fail.
Well, we're going to have a mixed future. We're going to have some renewables and we're going to have a lot of hydrocarbons. And it makes sense if you live in Hawaii and they don't have pipelines and it's windy and sunny all the time, it makes a lot of sense. Or if you live in the South. But if you're in Minnesota, it doesn't make any sense at all, or in Massachusetts, but they're trying to put these in, or in England, for example, they're trying to put in a lot of solar and they only get something like 8% of rated output out of their solar. It's very, very small. So
Very small. Yeah.
we need to use energy sources where they make sense and combat real environmental pollution and not this idea of carbon dioxide, which should not be called a pollutant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's right. So maybe the application may be very, let's see, you need to think exactly the variables that you have and put renewable energy
Yep.
where we have results, good results. Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
That's true. Your books. Tell us about your books a little bit, please.
So Green Breakdown is a lot of fun. It's a color paperback, and in addition to the science and the economics, it has 150 color sidebars like this one.
Is
And
this one?
this is I'll go back to that one. So this is
Is this one?
go back to that Saving the Planet. This is a real sidebar in Green Breakdown, and it's a real headline.
Okay, this one. Okay.
It's a real headline from the news, and I have all these headlines from the news. Here's somebody who actually invented a T-shirt that, as you wear it, it sucks carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. So there's all kinds of crazy, amusing things in these books, but they'll give readers the real story. You can get these from my website, Steve Gorham, GOREHAM.com. You can purchase a signed copy. There are ebooks available as well, and of course, all of my books are on Amazon.
Perfect. Perfect. So, to make your final conclusions about COP30, what do you really expect from COP30?
Well, there's going to be division again. The U.S., of course, is going to boycott it, and I think we're going to have more situations of leading people like Bill Gates that are saying, let's go back to sensible energy policy. Let's fight real pollution. Let's solve real world problems. And carbon dioxide really is a secondary effect. And again, the only rational policy with climate is adaptation, to adjust to what's going on with the temperatures in the sea, not the idea that we can control those. We don't know how to do that yet.
Very good. Thank you so much, Steve Gordonham.